All right, well, good morning and hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar titled Managing Sustainability Responsibly During the Pandemic with an esteemed panel from NHLA's Clean and Green Committee. For those who don't know me, my name is Anthony Lai, and I am with the International School of Hospitality, along with being an active member of the Nevada Hotel Lodging Association. I'll be moderating the discussion today. Joining with me are an amazing group of elite professionals ranging from all industries in hospitality that each plays a vital role in hotel housekeeping and sustainability. In no particular order, the panel today includes Jim Kenny, owner of Catalytic Pure Air, Michelle Klein, Chief Operating Officer for Link Hospitality, Pranav Jampani, Executive Director of Sustainability at the Venetian Resort, Byron Sampson, Vice President of Sales for Brady Linen Services, Chris Lynch, Director of the Nevada Business Environmental College Program, College of Business at the University of Nevada, Reno, Daniel Harn, Director of Housekeeping for the Downtown Grand Hotel and Casino, and Patrick Walton, Convention Services Administrator for the Southern Nevada Water Authority. Thank you, panel, for being here with me today as we take a deep dive on a variety of housekeeping and sustainable programs with a focus on the environment and what we can do moving forward on the best practices as hotel lodging members. If anyone in the audience today that has a question for our panel, we will reserve the last 10 minutes for the Q&A session. So please type your questions on either the chat feature or on our Q&A feature. So panel, are we ready to get started? See if you can get a nod. Great, wonderful. So today we will begin with our first speaker, Michelle Klein. Michelle will be addressing staffing issues for sustainable safety. So Michelle, before you begin, if you can mind sharing a little bit about your background, and while you do that, I'll go ahead and pull up your presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anthony, and thank you everyone for being here today. There's a lot that we need to cover, and there's a very series of topics that we're going to cover. So we're hoping to inspire on with our industry. I am Chief Operating Officer for Link Hospitality. I'm being told by my internet that my connection is unstable. Can you give me a nod, Anthony, if you can hear me well?
I can hear you.
Wonderful. Great. Let's go on to the next slide, Anthony. I am Chief Operating Officer for Link Hospitality. I will be speaking with you all about staffing in times of COVID and how things have changed and how can we make particularly those candidates or team members that are working in specific cleaning areas of our industry, make them feel comfortable enough. Why is this subject so important or close to my heart? It is because our organization provides staffing solutions in various areas of the industry, and we also do turnkey cleaning management in public areas or EBS departments or housekeeping departments. So we are in this challenge of trying to staff our properties and staff our departments when we're facing a complicated time of our era through this pandemic. So today, more than ever, it is extremely important to make sure that there is safety paired up with sustainability when we hire and within our practices. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we know sustainability to be everything about creating the balance between people, planet, and profit. But how do we do this, right? It's not just about what we're doing, but it's more so how we're doing it. How are we transforming the way we operate in an effort to continue to be sustainable And it is not so much about where we put our efforts. It's more so about creating that mindset and that leadership that is going to be putting goals, setting goals, and achieving those goals beyond regulatory compliance. This is more so about how do we need to become conscious about the way we do things, especially nowadays where there is more PPE that is being utilized, and how are we getting rid of that, and so on. Many organizations across the world and obviously our nation itself are using these different aspects of sustainability as a way to attract candidates as well, because candidates nowadays want to understand what the values behind those organizations are, so organizations can showcase these values and be able to attract better talent that is more conscious in that way. It's also a good way of measuring the impact and the outcome that our operation has. And it increases our competitive advantage as organizations when we go into the market of the candidates. Next slide, please. So how are we addressing the staffing issues for sustainable safety and to make sure that these candidates that we're attracting today do feel comfortable about coming back to work? It's obviously, we know that in many cases, depending on the brand or depending of where we stand, workplace safety is underemphasized and it's sometimes completely overlooked, regardless of those regulatory compliances that are in place or the enforcement that is in place. So I think that it's very important that we think about different ways to start integrating safety and health into sustainability, which provides also an opportunity to protect our employees and our workers in a stronger way, and it'll make our organization more sustainable. I think that today, more than ever, where we have seen protocols change dramatically, we also need to adapt to the way we are recruiting and to understand or comprehend what are those things that are important for those candidates as they start going back to work and they start going back into the regular duties beyond whatever guidelines are in place. Obviously, through COVID, we have seen some of these protocols change when it comes to the way we clean, when it comes to the way um, we move around our properties, but more so we have to start thinking about how all these changes affect our recruiting ways of doing business. Next slide, please. So some of the things that we have done, or how has recruiting changed in our world, we have seen that although everyone is going into dusting off their safety manuals and making sure that we are adapting these manuals into the new way of doing business, or this new normal, these new protocols when it comes to fighting COVID. Safety and security protocols are not just enough. It's a matter of trying to comprehend what the employee is going through. Especially you have guest room attendants that are going into rooms and they're exposing themselves, and how may they be feeling. So making sure that we work on presenting those new protocols in a way to our team members or to the candidates that are joining the team, presenting it in a way where they understand that this is not just about enforcing these new policies, but it's also a matter of making sure that they feel safe in their environment and they can speak up if that's not the case, or we can listen to their ideas if there is anything that should be adjusted. The other area that we have seen a major change in has been wages. Las Vegas particularly is a very heavy unionized market, but we are speaking to different operations within Nevada, and obviously we operate in various states in the country. And as we start opening our hotels back up, we realize that there's a lot of team members that either don't want to go back to work because they're comfortable where they are, or they need to make sure that they are caring for their children because their school perhaps hasn't opened yet, so they have to make those decisions, or they simply are very, very scared of going back to work. So wages is something that we've had seen a major reevaluation, not only from our perspective as Link Hospitality, but also in speaking with other members of our industry, where we have to adapt to that to make sure that we become competitive and that it makes sense for the candidate at that specific level to put themselves in that situation where they do feel comfortable of going back to work. Policies and procedures, making sure that we are communicating those, that team members know that there is enforcement behind those policies and procedures. That's most definitely something that the communication piece has been top of mind to ensure that they feel safe. Benefits and perks, having health benefits or having different different types of offerings beyond the paycheck is probably today more than ever not just enough. So making sure that we thought creatively on what are those things that we can bring to the mix, and how are some of these candidates or team members that have left that are now coming back thinking today, like for example, childcare, like for example, ways of being able to provide them with different types of PPE and stuff that they could take home and perhaps use at home when it comes to chemicals, whatever the case may be. So those things that add value to the candidate has been something that we've worked on as well. The other thing that we notice is that in order for candidates or team members to feel attracted, pushing our mission, vision, values, and our culture, and a culture of safety, and a culture of still thinking about the environment, and a culture of still being aware of where we stand beyond our operation, beyond our profit margins, was something that was important and that we had to pay attention to. So if you haven't looked at the way you're communicating your culture as an organization yet, I do encourage you to do so, just to make sure that you are attracting the right candidate, because that's what we have noticed that candidates today more than ever need. And diversity is the final one. We've been through a year 2020 where diversity was a huge push. Our organization is formed by a very diverse group of individuals, and we're very proud of that. But this year, as we go into 2021, making sure that we attract candidates that are in not just a matter of gender or a matter of whether it's a person of a particular background or not. It's more so also focusing on those other people who may have perhaps a learning disability and they are willing to go back to work. And if we train them and teach them the right way and make sure that they are safe at all times, that's something that we started looking at. The last thing that we strongly believe in, that we started working on this year as well, or going into this year, is we have service promise to our clients. Any hotels we serve, we go by the word experience that meets different criterias, and making sure that we gave that a twist and serve the experience in the way of treating our team members as not just part of the family, but also part of the client group. So making them feel that we're serving them as well, and making them feel that we are making sure that we are paying attention to their needs, paying attention to their fears mainly, and adapting to that as they adapt to it as well. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Michelle, for sharing that. I just want to go back to this slide particular. You highlighted the 6 areas how recruiting has changed because of the pandemic. Which of these 6 areas would you say that has like the greatest change from pre to now COVID? Like which one is like the biggest change that you have experienced?
I think that the conscious of enforcing safety policies, the conscious and the awareness of following the SOPs when it comes to particular um, procedures, when it comes to cleaning. It has been very interesting all through last year connecting with some of our clients and bouncing ideas off of each other to comprehend how their SOPs needed to change and what we could do to assist them through the process, and realizing that a lot of this was already written and in some cases it wasn't probably enforced. So creating that awareness, I think, has been the most impactful way, or the thing that impacted us the most from an operational standpoint, making sure that we assist our clients in creating that awareness that safety today more than ever has to be respected and our manuals have to be respected and so on. And then as a follow to that, I would say most definitely wages. I feel wages are changing in many markets that are starting to open up, and in markets that haven't opened up just yet, they are going to change for sure, because people are very fearful of coming back to these particular positions that we staff for. And we have the issue of kids not being back at school yet. So a lot of women are not being able to go back to the workforce. So it has to make sense for them to go back.
All right. Well, thank you, Michelle, for sharing. So we're going to go ahead and move on to our next speaker, Daniel Harn, Director of Housekeeping for the Downtown Grand. Daniel, are you on here?
Good morning. Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
All right.
So let me go ahead and share this real quick. And Daniel, today we'll be talking about creating guest confidence in clean. So Daniel, we'll go ahead and pull up your presentation. If you don't mind sharing a little bit about your background.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So I've had a varied experience in my career. I've spent about the last 15 years bouncing in between housekeeping and public areas departments in the hotel industry and actually outside the hotel industry. Before that, I spent a few years actually in the janitorial supply sales side. So I've actually been on both sides of the desk, on the chemical and equipment side. And actually before that, I spent 20 years in the special event television, festival and banquets world. So in operational on that side. So I've seen a lot of things on both sides, but definitely the last 20 so years on the housekeeping, public areas and cleaning side. So thank you everybody for giving me a little bit of time today to talk about how COVID has changed many things in our world on the cleaning side. One thing that Michelle just said in her presentation, which is 100% correct, that we even saw here at our property, was a lot of the SOPs and everything that we thought we needed to change, we already had in place. We just weren't enforcing them. So that's definitely, I'm sure that everyone who's on the call is seeing it throughout their operation. We're definitely seeing that. We definitely saw that here. So I think we can go to the next couple slides, please. One more slide. So talking about how times have changed, one thing that has changed is guest preference on how they select properties where they're going to stay. Cleanliness never used to rate in the top 3 or 4 reasons that a guest would stay at a hotel. But since COVID has come into all of our lives, that has very much changed how guests look at what hotels, what properties they reserve at, and they look for those highly rated properties in cleanliness. So next slide, please. So an example of that, here's hotels.com did a couple surveys talking about what guests use as their criteria for choosing a hotel. They did one back in 2017, and you can see the top 3 choices were value for their money, the location, and the type of experience they're going to have while they're staying there. In that survey, cleanliness actually came in at number 7. Now they did that survey again back in August of last year, 2020, right as everything started to reopen. And as you can see, number one up top was cleanliness. So just in a matter of 3 years, how much guest preferences have changed, looking at the type of hotel, type of property they want to stay at. Location still made the top three, and then also, friendly staff, how the guests interact with the staff became a big part of it as well. That also go into the experience, but you can definitely see how cleanliness took a big jump up, and that's really what's on the forefront of guests' mind these days. Next slide, please. So on the housekeeping and public area side, some of the best practices that we've all had to adjust over the last 11 months. A lot of us had to adjust our chemical programs to bring in product that was on the EPA N list for the approved chemicals against COVID. That was a big change. Moving traditional printed in-room collateral, most of us have had magazines, marketing materials, things like that in the rooms that have all been pulled out of the rooms. And those items have been transitioned to digital platforms, whether it be on the room TVs or on apps or on websites. We're also seeing, and this was not so much a COVID push, but an increase in use of technology in the rooms as far as touchless items, using guest phones to do things like room keys, also tablets in rooms. Removing some decorative items from rooms, especially decorative pillows and bed throws, just some of those extra things that, while they made the rooms look very nice, were things that weren't laundered, if we are all honest, weren't laundered as often as they should be. Really were a potential liability for properties as far as not being cleaned and as far as harboring the potential of spreading the virus. That goes along the same thing with continuing the trend of a lot of properties removing the big heavy old duvets from the rooms and going with either triple sheeting or a different type of bed cover that's more easily laundered and can hold up to being laundered more often. Going back to what I said at the beginning about staffing and staff and SOPs, an increased focus on training on the use of chemicals. Most properties that I've been at and those that I talk to, we'll bring in a new chemical program. We'll do a few days of intense training when we bring it in, and then that's the last we talk about it, unless somebody does something wrong with it. But really increasing that focus on making sure every day that the team members are using the chemicals are supplied properly, make sure proper dwell time is being used, and making sure they're using the right chemicals in the right setting. Not using an air freshener to wipe down sinks, for example. That's a big one that happens quite often. That not only increases the safety and the cleanliness for our guests, but also increases the safety for the team because they know things are being sanitized properly. Some hotels are able to do this, some are not. Rotating floors or holding rooms out of order after guests check out. That's all based on their occupancy. And then one thing that we've established here, and I know several other properties have established across town, is no contact delivery for guest items, whether we leave them at the door, or I know in some cases, some properties have even brought in robots to do deliveries. Again, minimizing the contact between the team members, the employees and the guests for everyone's safety. So next slide, please. Just a couple of quick visuals on some visible signs that properties are doing to show the guest that the rooms are clean. A couple examples here of some stickers that are being used to basically seal off rooms to show they've been cleaned and no one's been in the room since they've been cleaned. And also an example of the keyless entry as well. Next slide, please. So here at Downtown Grand, we are doing something with our partner Nivola. I know a lot of properties use hot sauce. Navola is another program similar to hot sauce that we use here. We're actually letting the guests behind the curtain a little bit to let them know what we're doing. We have these QR codes that you see that we've been printing out and actually placing all around the property in restrooms, restaurants, as many places as we can. And as the team members complete cleaning those areas, they scan their checkpoints, and it shows that when the area has been cleaned. It also cuts down on all the paper and logs and everything that we used to keep, and would have, we don't have the boxes and boxes and boxes of paperwork anymore that we used to store. And then the guests can actually come up to those QR codes, scan them with their own phone. They don't have to download any kind of a special app or anything, and can actually tell the guests when the last time the area they just scanned was clean. So this is a way to increase confidence with the guests to show we are doing what we promised we were going to do, in cleaning our areas as often as we need to. Next slide, please. So I don't know about the rest of you, but on the housekeeping side, I have spent more time in marketing meetings in the last 8-9 months than I've spent in the last 15 years. Just because housekeeping normally isn't a department that is included in marketing. But as you can see, I just pulled some examples here of, around town, a lot of us who have, made cleanliness a major point on our websites. A lot of these are right off the front page of the website, to again, give guests that safe feeling that when they come visit us here in Las Vegas, that they're coming to a safe, clean environment that they're able to enjoy themselves, not have to worry about the property not being clean and up to regulations as far as sanitation goes. Next slide, please. And so we have also seen some innovations in technology that has helped with the cleanliness. Electrostatic sprayers, which I have some examples of here, are all the rage right now. Just about everybody who can develop a piece of equipment has come out with their own version of a electrostatic sprayer. We have a couple of them here at the downtown ground. We love them. I wish I had 10 more. But they have really come in handy as far as allowing the smaller team that we have here cover a rather large area quicker, and ensuring that the disinfectant that we're putting out is doing its job. And with the envelopment that the charged ions create with the electrostatic sprayer, we know with confidence that we're able to properly disinfect the areas, especially a large area like the casino floor, quickly, safely, and know that if we go back and test with a meter, that we're going to be well within the specifications that we have established. Next slide, please. So just some industry resources that are out there if anyone's looking for help on what to do with their property, or writing some SOPs. One that I actually had the pleasure to be part of is the ISSA GPAC program. I was able to go through that training last spring. Very, very useful program if anyone's interested in that. American Hotel Lodging has a really great program that they put out. That it's the cover of the program there you see on the screen. All of us here in the Green and Clean Committee are open. If anyone has any questions or any needs, and of course the Southern Nevada Health District has been a great partner with us here at Downtown Grand when we've had questions and or situations come up where we needed guidance. They've been amazing for us, and we definitely thank them all for that. Next slide, please. And if you ever visit my office, this sign is actually hanging in my office. That is kind of how we all felt about COVID-19 towards the end of the summer. So, and of course, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so I just thought everyone would enjoy that right at the end here. I know we all kind of feel that way every once in a while with everything we're going through right now. So, thank you all for giving me a few minutes to talk about it.
All right. Well, thank you, Daniel. Before we go to Jim, I do have a question for you. When it comes to best practices on the changes that are with the hotel housekeeping, Daniel, do you feel like all these new technologies has affected your costs, or were you able to remove some of the things that you have done before pre-COVID to offset the cost that you're going to bring in because of the pandemic?
So the changes in technology have actually allowed us to reduce cost by being able to use a smaller staff. Have allowed us to cover a much wider area, where before to sanitize, I'll use the casino floor for example, before to do the sanitation of the slot machines every 2 hours as required by state mandates right now. I would in the past need 4 or 5 casino porters to be able to meet that task. Now with the electric static sprayers, that's down to 1, and I can do that within that same time frame. So definitely the increase in technology is definitely saving cost.
All right, thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jim Kenny. Jim is the owner of Catalytic Pure Air. Jim will talk about airborne disinfection products and processes. Jim, are you there?
Yes, good morning, everybody.
Hi, Jim. If you don't, before I pull up your presentation, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Jim Kenny. I've been in the indoor air quality business since 2001, and specifically working with casinos since 2008. I've been a member of the Nevada Hotel and Lodging Association for, I think, 7 years, and have been sponsoring the Sustainability Award, which is a really, really great group with the Green and Clean Committee. So what we want to do is talk about
Jim.
today. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, can we go back one slide, please, Anthony?
Of course.
So I want to talk about a few things. One is, how do airborne viruses get aerosolized, like this guy we're seeing right here, and how does it affect your casino and your casino operations? 2, we're going to talk about some of the technologies that can help reduce viruses. And lastly, kind of come up with a list of questions and plans how to move forward with an indoor air quality program that can really help reduce COVID and viruses in the future. So we're all guilty of this. The interesting thing about this is here's a gentleman sneezing or coughing, but the research is showing now that even breathing normally can have as big an aerosol load of viruses as sneezing or coughing. When you're singing or yelling, it gets that much more dramatic. And so that's why everybody now is being asked to wear masks. This is the culprit right here, and we're all guilty. Next slide, please, Anthony. Here's a typical dinner at my house. We're all doing very well and very healthy. The main point of this slide is COVID really came into play about 11 months ago. And it's been very good for raising awareness of cleanliness, like Daniel talked about, also with airborne viruses and bacteria. And so keeping in perspective, airborne disinfection, it's not only for COVID, but there's a lot of bacteria, there are a lot of viruses, there are influenza A. So not only during this time, but going forward in 5 or 10 years, how important air quality will be. You probably remember back when they first started selling bottled water, and said, who's ever going to buy water out of a bottle when you can get it for free? Now it's a huge, huge industry. And right now we're kind of in the midst of the organic food, clean food, locally grown food to be sustainable. And now we're just starting to get on the cusp of air quality, and this COVID-19 has really brought it to the forefront of what we're doing about our air quality, how we're taking care of ourselves, and how we're staying healthy. Next slide, Anthony. So why are we all doing this? I think everybody's talked about this a little bit, is making our customers healthy and happy, getting cash back into our pockets with the casino industry, tailing complaints, and employees. Those things are very, very important. And one of the most important things is, just like Daniel talked about, people are very concerned about cleanliness now and coming into a casino. And that only goes, for the restaurants, the kitchens, the rooms, but the air too, because people realize that these viruses are floating through the air, and what can we do to mitigate them? Next slide, please. So this is really, really, really important here. If you take anything away from this whole presentation, is when these viruses come out of our mouth, maybe talking, coughing, or whatnot, they're the droplets. This is contact transmission that'll go down to a surface that can be wiped or cleaned, or with some kind of a surface cleaning, taking care of that. They say that these droplets, they can live up to 24 hours on a surface, depending upon the surface, where it's cardboard, steel, plastic, or whatnot. So they're hanging around for a while. So if you have 100 people breathing all the time and somebody's infected, it keeps reinfecting the air. So it's a constant job to keep this clean and sanitized. The smaller droplets, these ones we're concerned about right in the middle of your screen there, the aerosolized particles. These are the ones that can float around and get in your HVAC system. They can land in your carpets and get kicked back up again. They can get on bedspreads. If a bedspread is shaken, it can go back up in the air again, taken into your HVAC system. So this is what we're trying to prevent, this aerosolized viruses, by wearing masks. So you see down the bottom of the screen there, all the masks being worn, very, very important. The last one is, we all are kind of our filter on our own. Our nose is about a 30 micron filter. So every time you're breathing through, your nose is cleaning stuff out in that air. Your throat's about a 5 micron filter. And then your lungs are 0.3 microns. And that's the stuff. The viruses are very, very small. So if they're inhaled, they get into your lungs. And that's why people are getting so sick with the COVID-19, because it's actually getting into your lungs. And that's where the infection's happening. And that's why people get really, really sick. So masks are key, but understanding this whole concept of aerosolized viruses is very, very important as we move forward, because if we don't stop this, things are going to continue to spread, hence all the mask wearing. Next slide, please, Anthony. Okay, take time to look at this, because this is all the way airborne viruses can spread. Remember, have you ever been in a place where you smell smoke, but you have no idea where it's coming from? That is drifting through. Maybe it's coming up through an elevator shaft. Maybe it's coming from another room, but you can't see it, but you can sure smell it, right? So think if we could smell the COVID-19. Wouldn't that be incredible to know if you're getting infected, just like you can smell cigarette smoke? These are all the ways that airborne viruses can travel. One is in an office space. It gets sucked in from outside, coming into an office space. Hallways can carry it. When they had the big SARS outbreak in Asia, what they found was that one bathroom where one of the first people got very, very sick, that bathroom exhausted out onto a very, very busy sidewalk. So that virus is raining down constantly on people as they walk by. And that led to huge spread of the virus. So this is very important to understand, that these things can be floating through our return vents, through our HVAC system. So these things are possible once they're aerosolized. Next slide, please. All right, here's smoking. Remember, smoking used to be the big problem for casinos, smoking and odors. Now the new thing is COVID-19. Everybody's very concerned about COVID-19. How do you stop it? How do you mitigate it? So one thing going forward is, when we're looking at technologies for COVID-19, let's not forget about the smoke and odors too, because they were complaints 11 months ago, and now they've kind of taken the back burner. But it's important when we look at technologies that we address smoke and odors as well as the COVID-19. Next slide, please. Okay, particulates. There are 3 parts of any kind of air quality: is particulate, aerosolized biological problems, and chemicals. But the most important thing about particulates, they can be taken out by filters, but a lot of time viruses can grab onto those particulates and take a ride around your area. So it's not necessarily just the virus on its own, but it attaches to a particulate. That's why we can use HEPA filters, good quality filters, either in a portable unit, which is shown here, or in the HVAC system to try and cut down on those viruses grabbing onto particles and getting circulated around your property. Go ahead, Anthony. This is the second part. This is VOCs. This is cigarette smoke, just not to lose the focus totally on COVID, which is a virus and a bacteria. We'll get to that next. But this, I know everyone who's been in the hotel industry has either got a smoke or an odor complaint. So when we look at technologies, let's try and include that in fixing our COVID-19 problem, along with the VOCs and cigarette smoke. Next one, Anthony. And here's the culprit. Viruses and bacteria. Bacteria are quite large, so they're easy to count and find and wipe out. Viruses are very, very small. That's why they have a hard time counting them, finding them, and they often latch on to particulate or they get aerosolized in some kind of water vapor and move around and make us sick. Next slide, please, Anthony. All right, here are the three big solutions. How do we do this? One is remove the source. But right down here, our friend from the first slide, he's still going to come. Customers are going to come. We can't get rid of them. Second thing is cleaning, vacuuming, tarping, tenting. As Daniel talked about, using negative cleaning machines to clean the casinos and whatnot, doing the best we can, but we'll never really get rid of it because all air quality has to do with occupancy and activity. And as long as you have customers and as long as they're breathing, we're going to have indoor air quality issues. Next one, Anthony. Next one is ventilate, open the windows. We can do this in our house, but it's pretty hard to do on a big commercial property because most of the places, or most of the windows are locked, closed, obviously. A lot of times our HVAC systems, they bring in 100% air in and 100% out. That can be helpful, but at the same time, it's very expensive because you have to heat or cool that air every time you do it. So that's not really a viable solution in many ways. Next one, Anthony. And now we're going to get into some of the viruses. The main thing we're going to about, what are some technologies? There are two kind of basic technologies. One, something you put in the HVAC system, or two, you'd have a portable unit that you put someplace, either in a room, a floor, or a public space. So we'll briefly go over these technologies, starting with the next slide. First one is air exchange. That's what we talked about more, is bringing 100% air and 100% air out. This can work in your home, but it's very difficult with a big commercial property because one, the expense, and two, it's hard to get this and regulate it and get it moving. And people don't like a lot of air coming into their properties most of the time. Next, Anthony. HEPA filtration. You always heard about HEPA. It's a high efficiency particulate filter. These are very effective because remember all that virus that's attaching to the particulate? The particulate gets caught in these filters and it keeps it from circulating around the property. For a portable unit, these are pretty viable because the portable unit is built to handle a HEPA filter. But in a lot of big AHU units, air handling units, you can't use these because the pressure drop is too great. So it is a good solution on point of use air filtration, keeping things clean. With a really good HEPA filter, you get about 87% reduction if everything is perfect, but sometimes there's bypassing, sometimes things slough off. So you have to be particularly careful. But a lot of those aerosolized viruses we talked about earlier, they get caught by these HEPA filters, which is very good. Next technology, please. Sense, not so much a technology, but a lot of people put sense, which is really a chemical going through your HVAC system. It does make things smell better, but a lot of people really don't endorse adding chemicals to your breathing atmosphere. You want to try and get the contaminants out rather than putting chemicals in. Next technology, please, Anthony. Ozone. You probably all seen these, ozone. Ozone is often used for cleaning if there's some kind of an odor event in a room. Ozone is effective, but it's quite toxic. So you have to close the room, and the room is usually out of order for 3 to 4 hours, and you can't have any humans around it. So you have to be very careful with ozone and the applications it has. It will kill viruses, but it can also be harmful to humans as well. So that's another technology that is effective against viruses, but can be harmful to humans too. Next technology, Anthony. Ionization, plasma, bipolar ionization. The idea of this is an ozonator puts out negative and positive charged molecules into the air, and they combine with these particulates, and then the particulates will settle to the ground, to the floor, or onto a surface, and then often that surface has to be wiped up or cleaned up. This technology has been quite widely used. It's still not determined if there's enough peer-reviewed information on how effective it is, but it is out there as a technology. We recommend everybody do as much homework as they need to on these different technologies. Next technology, please. Carbon is very effective for odor control and smoke, particulate, and whatnot, but it will not help that much with viruses because the micron level is too small. It gets through, and often viruses can get into a carbon filter and then spread and multiply from there because there's really nothing to neutralize the RNA or DNA in the virus. But this is very good for odor control if you're looking for that kind of a remedy. Next one, please, Anthony. UV light technologies. The idea with UV is a very intense light, and it's two things you need: the intensity and then the time exposure gives you your dosage. So on the left here, this is an HVAC system where the light would be the air would be going from right to left, and as that virus passes that UV light, it is disabled, so it cannot reproduce. And this is a very effective technology. It must be in an enclosed area like an HVAC unit or in a portable unit that effectively shields you from the UV. This technology is endorsed by the CDC and the ASHRAE, which is the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning and Engineering. But this technology, it must be engineered so you get the right dosage, the right time exposure, and the right intensity of lamps to kill the virus right as you're looking for. You've also probably seen the wands that you can put over bedspreads or surfaces. These, you have to make sure that's the right time exposure and right intensity to kill a virus or kill a bacteria. So it's important to do your research on those. And now they're coming out too with robots. Robots for supermarkets, robots where this robot would go into a room, it'd have UV light, it would sterilize everything and it'd come out. So it's a pretty interesting technology that's happening right now. This UV technology is widely used in medical, hospital, healthcare, that industry. So they're getting good results on virus reduction with the UV light technology. Next one, Anthony. So these are just some technology questions. This will all be available to you. We'll send this presentation out, so don't bother to write it down or get too concerned about it. But when you're looking at technologies, is it proven? Is it engineered? Do hospitals and healthcare use the technology? It's important to get the results of how the technology works and get the results peer reviewed by a third independent party. A lot of people, a lot of industries do their own testing, but you really want a peer review by the independent party like the CDC or ASHRAE. Look for engineering companies that have the engineering that can really set you up with a good system. It's because obviously airspeed, every space is different, every application is different. And ask them how long it takes to so-called kill the COVID-19. Sometimes their test will say, yes, it kills it, but it might take 20 to 30 minutes. That's a long time to wait. The other one virus that is quite a problem is just influenza A, which is the common cold. So it's important to find out if you're going to spend all this money on a COVID-19 solution that'll also take care of influenza A, because that's a problem down the road. I think colds are ever going to go away. So you want to find out what viruses any technology is effective against and the percentage effective. That should be readily available. And last is ask your manufacturer to provide a validated modeling showing the intensity and minimum dose in an exposed space. If they have this kind of scientific data, this kind of research, you probably got a very, very solid company to work with and a solid piece of equipment to take care of the COVID and the influenza. Next one, Anthony. Here's a modeling output. This is just to give you an idea of something you should be looking for. The red arrow is influenza A. This technology it would kill up to 95% influenza A in the space, and the coronavirus would kill 100%. One good thing as a side note is coronavirus is about 3 times easier to kill than influenza. So we're getting a little bit lucky on that one. But all these things, airflow, volume, speed, temperature, geometry, and intensity will all affect the technology and how well it works for your particular space. Next slide, Anthony. Look for the CDC and ASHRAE, what they endorse, what they recommend for cleaning technologies. I can give you more information on this. Feel free to email me or call me. It's just good to get third-party independent information on how these technologies are and how well they're endorsed. Next slide. And this is something I think that Daniel alluded to a little bit, is good indoor air quality is an amenity. People are really looking for cleanliness. So when they're coming there, as Daniel said, he's in on a lot of marketing meetings now, because that's what people are trying to do, is say, how do we promote this really good air, this good air quality that we have, all the things we're doing. So trying to keep that in perspective as you invest in these things is to make sure that your customers know what is going on. Next one, Anthony. Market your indoor quality. I think we just talked about that, how good it is, how happy everyone's going to be. I think we're winding down to the last slide here. Go ahead, Anthony. And this is just this is a video I saw at Barona Resort Casino. They put in an air purification system, and this was part on their television, just a rolling advertisement of all the amenities, and one of their amenities was air purification. So it's a very important part of promoting it and getting people back in your property, saying, hey, we've got clean air, we're ready for you, we're doing what it takes. Last one, Anthony. Picking solutions, once again, do your research. The shark over here have a horse, it's a hybrid. It could be carbon, it could be HEPA, it could be UV, it could be ionization, it could be a combination of things. And lastly, get references of people who have used the technology, professional organizations. Make sure you make the right choice. I think that's it, Anthony, unless you got the... Oh yeah, and this is the next low-cost steps. Create political will to really improve your quality, research your technologies, and not only evaluate your current system, but maintain it too. Sometimes we'll go into a property or a place where the HVAC system hasn't been maintained. Just changing your filters, making sure your ducts are clean, making sure your outlets are clean. It can be a huge, huge benefit to everybody inside. Sometimes it is ignored, that maintenance aspect of it. Anthony, next one. There's my contact information. If anybody needs anything, happy to give the presentation or answer any questions you might have.
All right, well, thank you, Jim. That was a very, very informative presentation. I feel like I need to know a little bit more about air transmission and disinfection. I feel like I need you to come to my house and just do it like an air check. I'm just curious, what, in your experience or in your personal opinion, either be at like an average household or at a hotel property, is there something that you see that we always seem to ignore and we should pay a little bit more attention to, that we need to get fixed in, like, either that be like the mold or like the air filters? What's your opinion that we always seem to, like an average person always seems to forget?
Oh, for the customer or the property itself, Anthony?
Either or.
I'd say first for the property side is just maintain your equipment. I know I'm guilty of my own furnace at home where you don't change the filters and you look in there, oh my goodness, it's terrible. So that is one thing, just maintenance, wiping things down, vents, things like that. And then the second thing for people, if you ever look up and look at a register in a building, anywhere you are, you'll probably see dirt, dust accumulated. So checking your filters, evaluating it, and then making a plan to invest in air quality. You wouldn't have a dirty restaurant. You wouldn't have a dirty room. So why would you have a dirty or unclean or ineffective HVAC system? So just making political will to start looking at it. And there's a lot of things you can do to evaluate your system and make suggestions without spending any money to make it better.
Yeah, I think we can circle back that now air quality is now an amenity at hotels.
It is, yes, it is, yeah.
All right, well, thank you, Jim. So our next speaker is Pranav Jampani. Pranav is the Executive Director of Sustainability for the Venetian Palazzo Resort. Pranav's going to speak to us today on PPE sustainable programs. Hi, Pranav, are you here?
Hi, Anthony. Yes, I'm here. How are you?
Doing very well. While I have you on here, could you tell me a little bit about yourself and your background and what is an executive director of sustainability?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Anthony. Good morning, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today. I hope all of you and your families are doing well during this pandemic crisis. So basically, I serve as the Executive Director of Sustainability for the Venetian, the Palazzo, and Sands Expo here in Las Vegas. I lead the Sands Eco 360 Global Sustainability Program for our properties here in Vegas. I manage the development, implementation, and reporting of our sustainability strategy, goals, policies, and programs. So I'm basically responsible for developing and implementing sustainability programs and initiatives to effectively integrate sustainability into resorts, practices, processes, and culture. So the primary function of my role is to drive projects that focus on our key operational areas, which include green buildings, environmentally responsible operations, green meetings and events, and finally, stakeholder engagement. And obviously, the goal, our company goal and my goal is to further advance the company's sustainability program and enhance our leadership position in the industry. So having said that, that's a brief description or overview of what I do at the Venetian Resort. So let me start by sharing why the Venetian decided to do the PPE recycling program. As I mentioned, we have a global sustainability program called Sands Eco 360. So as part of our program, addressing plastic pollution is an important focus area for the Venetian Resort. And during the pandemic, we came across an unusual headline in an article published by The Guardian that really caught our attention, which stated, coronavirus waste ends up in ocean, more mass and PPE than jellyfish. So the article basically mentioned that knowing that more than 2 billion disposable masks have been ordered, soon there may be more masks than jellyfish in the Mediterranean waters. And I think anecdotally, most of us have seen people, just chuck them on the street and whatnot, right? So masks and other personal protective equipment, also known as PPE, as most of you are aware, are clearly important in the fight against the spread of COVID-19 virus. However, many who care about the environment are also concerned that many of the items that we have been using over the past several months will in fact eventually end up in oceans and could pose a serious threat to oceans and marine life by skyrocketing plastic pollution. So obviously, as we address new challenges, we always must take into consideration whether our efforts can have unintended consequences. As much as 13 million tons of plastic goes into oceans each year already, according to a 2018 estimate by United Nations. And the Mediterranean already sees almost 570,000 tons of plastic flow into it annually, an amount the World Wildlife Federation has described as equal to dumping almost 34,000 plastic water bottles every minute into the sea. So these, since we're talking about mass specifically, the mass actually have a lifespan of almost 450 years and have serious and lasting environmental consequences for our oceans and as well as the planet. Currently, consumer mass are not recycled through mainstream or curbside recycling programs due to the complexity of the recycling process. Surgical face masks in particular are made of a multitude of materials and need to be sorted and separated before recycling. So having said that, our responsibility to the planet is one of our company's global sustainability program to minimize our environmental impact, and it reflects our vision to be one of the leaders in sustainable resort operations. We continue our journey to a more sustainable future as we seek innovative environmental solutions. And our responsibility to the planet is as important to us as our commitment to the comfort and well-being of our guests and team members. Um, Driven by an aspirational idea and made possible through the dedication and hard work of more than 50,000 team members globally, we continue our journey to a more sustainability in the forefront of our operations. It's important to find a recycling solution for this PPE material and equipment to avoid sending them to landfills. We actually took this up as a challenge, and we wanted to find a means to dispose of the mass in a sustainable manner. And 2020 obviously has been a very challenging year for all of us in so many different ways. And keeping our guests safe, our products sustainable, and our operations productive and efficient was critical to managing through the situations. As a result, we launched a new innovative recycling program to keep face masks out of local landfills. So the Venetian Resort basically partnered with a company called TerraCycle in one of the first PPE recycling programs in the hospitality industry to recycle surgical face masks, which are clean initiatives. And we're actually the first Las Vegas-based property and also one of the first in the nation and perhaps even globally to develop such a program. And just to describe about what TerraCycle does, TerraCycle's mission has always been to eliminate waste, recycle the unrecyclable, and partnering with them on this initiative was a no-brainer and also was the right thing to do for the Venetian Resort. So as part of this initiative, the discarded mass are being collected on site at the Venetian Resort at a recycling dock and sent to TerraCycle's recycling facility, where they're separated, shredded, and densified into a crumb-like raw material. So this raw material is used to make repurposed products such as composite lumber for shipping pallets, railroad ties, and composite decking. And since the reopening in June 2020, because we reopened our resorts back in June 2020, since the pandemic started around March of 2020. So since then, the Venetian Resort began diverting discarded surgical face masks from other waste being sent to landfills through an industry-leading trash sorting initiative that we already have in place at the property. Because in addition to the mass recycling program, the resort actively sorts its trash, diverting almost more than 25 different types of materials that would otherwise be sent to landfills. So through this program, between 55 to 60% of the waste is currently being diverted from the landfills, a number that far surpasses the national average of 32% or the state average of 23%. So we believe that the PPE recycling initiative will help provide a proof of concept for such recycling to encourage others to kind of replicate the same program. And as we all know, we are and have been creating too much waste. And I believe that it's time to make an essential adjustment to all of our lives. And to make any changes in our own lives, even better to influence other people's lives, right? And I believe we must start with education. So if that's because even the smallest actions can make a huge impact in the world. So I think each and every one of us has a role to play and can make a difference. As such, we are also doing an internal educational campaign to educate our team members and encouraging them to drop off their masks so that we can recycle those as well. through the PP recycling program that we established several months ago. So having said that, let me now briefly talk about what it took to set up this program and many challenges that we faced and overcame. Because setting up the PP recycling program was definitely a very challenging process. We knew that we must do something about these PP materials, but did not know what the solution was. The first step was doing a lot of research, obviously. We did a thorough research to understand the guidelines for proper disposal of this mass, the harmful effects of these materials, and also finding and contacting many different companies locally and nationally who might have a solution to this problem. Then came the actual process of collecting, separating, and storing this mass. So we actually brainstormed a few different ways to collect and separate this mass in our properties so that we would be able to capture as many as possible with least contamination. And in a resort of our size and magnitude of operations, this is very challenging, as you can imagine. Then came other logistics, figuring out how do we transport the mass to TerraCycle's facility with the least environmental impact. We again brainstormed many different ways and optimized the process as much as possible. And we basically decided to bale the mass to capture as much volume and weight as possible with the least amount of packaging. Then came communications. We closely collaborated with many of our internal teams, including hotel operations, convention center, team member engagement, marketing, PR, and other departments to effectively engage and educate them about the process and program. In fact, out of all the departments that I mentioned, we actually closely collaborated with hotel operations and public areas department and marketing on these initiatives. Because and in addition to that, we also partnered closely with our marketing and PR teams because telling the story was also extremely important to us, so our guests and team members understand the purpose and why we're asking them to participate and support with the PP recycling program. We also wanted to make it as seamless as possible for our guests and team members to participate in the program as well. Then came designing the bins, basically the recycling bins that we placed in different parts of our campus, and also signage and setting up those in strategic locations for upstream separation so that we could minimize the contamination. And the rest would be sorted at our back of house recycling dock. And something else that we did, which is interesting, was that we also sent samples of our PP materials to TerraCycle for them to actually test and complete a complete pilot test before we expanded the program to the convention side and pretty much the entire campus. So as of December 2020, we've recycled almost 10,000 pounds of PP mass alone. So obviously, in terms of the weight, it doesn't seem like it's a lot, but it's in terms of quantity, it's a lot of mass, which would most likely would have ended up in like oceans or littering the environment. So so we're really proud of the program that we were able to establish and implement since almost during the pandemic. Yep. So with that said, Anthony, I'll hand it over to you to see if there are any questions. I'm happy to answer those.
Yeah, absolutely. You covered a lot, and being that Venetian Palazzo is a 7,000 or more than 7,000 room resort, being that it's a large company looking to expand sustainability programs, what do you recommend? What do you recommend to expand?
Anthony, are you asking, just to clarify, are you asking like how do like we expand, or how do the other hospitality companies basically, start a similar program?
Okay, of course. And so what are you the most excited about right now in the world of sustainability?
Yeah, so I guess sustainable business definitely continues to be exciting and inspiring to watch as corporate leaders continue to push the barriers of what's possible, including transforming themselves into net positive and regenerative enterprises. Because as we're all seeing, companies continue to ratchet up their commitments and achievements on renewable energy, greenhouse gas emissions, sustainable supply chains, water stewardship, circular economy, and a lot of other aspects of a sustainable enterprise, right? So, one thing I'm most excited about is the circular economy and applying those concepts and principles to at our organization, because there's a growing awareness in the business community that the circular economy is not only here to stay, but will continue to gain a lot of traction in the coming years. Because companies are moving away from the traditional cradle to grave, make, use, dispose economic model to a more circular strategy, right? So much of what underlies the concept of circular economy, including reduce, reuse, and recycle, which has been promoted for decades, and provides a foundation for this evolution in the design, production, and reclamation of products. Um, but we're also starting to see more and more companies placing greater emphasis on taking a life cycle approach to understanding the total impact of their products and operations across their entire value chain. Because in a circular model, resources are kept in use for as long as possible with the maximum value extracted while in use. Then they're recovered at the end of product life, and used as materials for the next generation of products, just like what we've been doing with the mass, right? Because we've been repurposing those into like other products. So I think circular economy is definitely a latest trend, and is going to really grow in the coming years. And that is something that I'm most excited about right now in the world of sustainability, Anthony.
All right. Well, thank you, Pranav. I believe someone in the audience, Natali, has a question. So Natali, I'm going to push allow you to talk. If you can just mind saying the question out loud. Hello, Natali. All right, so it seems like I can't hear you, but if you don't mind, just put your question in the Q&A feature or in the chat feature. We'll get them answered towards the end of the presentation. All right, so our next speaker is Chris Lynch. Chris is the director for the Nevada Business Environmental Program, College of Business at the University of Nevada in Reno. Chris here today was going to talk to us about the free and affordable sustainable programs during COVID. So Chris, while I have you on here, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about yourself, I'll go ahead and pull up your presentation. Oh, you're on mute, so I'm going to ask you to unmute.
All right. Thank you, Anthony, and good morning, everybody. So as Anthony said, my name is Chris Lynch. I'm with the Nevada Business Environmental Program. I've been out in Nevada for 10 years now, and prior to that had set up and run a similar program for the state of Pennsylvania, working at the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. Fortunately, most of the time that I've been out here, I've had the pleasure of working with the NHLA and the Clean and Green Committee, so appreciate that. And Anthony, if you want to go ahead to the next slide, that would be great. So a little bit about the Business Environmental Program. We were established in 1988, and what I think is great, we're not part of a regulatory agency. We're part of the College of Business at UNR, and we're part of an economic development group there at the university. We're able, so I think the good thing is that, what we're looking for when we're working with businesses on environmental issues are, where do things make business sense? Where's the business case for environmental sustainability? So that's sort of the approach that we take when we're assisting businesses. In our program, we're statewide. It doesn't matter where you're located. We can come out and visit and help out and work with you. And there's no charge for our services, and everything that's done with us is completely confidential. Next slide. So, you've been hearing a lot of great ideas already this morning from the various speakers. And so, I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit today about, when it comes to environmental sustainability, what are some common strategies and what are some good resources that you can take advantage of? So, I think in terms of common strategies, really, each property, each resort, each casino, each property is going to be different. But, there are some common starting points if you haven't already started down this road. And the first would be forming a green team and really engaging members from both management as well as staff. You want that high level commitment, but some of the best ideas are going to come from the staff who are working every day. And I think, even through the presentations already this morning, we've heard from Daniel talking about some of the staff issues that they've run across. I think you get a lot of good feedback from staff, and it's very useful. So engage as many people from as many different levels as you can. Then, really it's about monitoring your utilities and your expenses, your waste, monitoring the trends, and doing that both monthly as well as annually, and taking a good look at it so that then you can use that data and that information to manage your performance and identify where opportunities might be. Next slide. So, I think really when you're talking about the business case for going green, it's about saving money, becoming a more efficient operation. If you can reduce waste, you're also going to reduce your operating cost. The word is waste. So, there's something in your process that's wasteful. So you want to be as least wasteful as possible. So improving the efficiency of your operations. And then also, as we've heard, repeatedly this morning, it's also about driving more customers. It's marketing what you're doing and attracting those customers who are interested in cleanliness, who are interested in environmental sustainability, grabbing their attention and driving those customers to your properties. Then, like I said, we want to cut waste because it makes good business sense. And when I talked about measuring usage, it's really, tracking and looking for the anomalies, the trends, and your opportunities. So you want to do that across the board with your utilities. You want to look at your electricity and natural gas. You want to look at your water and your hot water. You want to look at the materials that you're purchasing, both from a standpoint of, what's the greenness of the materials that you're purchasing, what are the worker health and safety effects of different cleaning products, disinfecting products. So taking a look at the materials you're purchasing, but also managing those materials, making sure that you manage the inventory so that the first in is the first out, and you don't end up with expired product, and you don't have waste disposal of expired products. So managing the inventory flow as well. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go fairly quickly through the various resources, but as Jim had said, the presentations will be available afterwards. So I put links in so that you would be able to go to some of these different resources after the presentations today. But obviously, the Nevada Hotel and Lodging Association is a great resource, and the Clean and Green Committee has been a real valuable committee to the association and the membership. There's a lot of expertise in the committee, and be sure to tap into that. The American Hotel and Lodging Association has green guidelines. There's something called the Green Lodging News, and it's a weekly email that comes out. That's something that I get every Monday. So you can sign up for that through the link that's provided on the slide. And then there's also the Green Hotel Association, and they've got some guidelines and ideas. So yeah, just in terms of if you're looking for new ideas or you're looking to get started, these are some of the resources that you can utilize. Next slide, please. And then, I think one of the things that everybody should really take a hard look at in Nevada are the utility program resources. And, because you can get technical assistance as well as financial assistance through some of these programs that are operated by the utilities. And the financial assistance can be great. There can be some rebates involved to help minimize the cost of making environmental sustainability upgrades. So you want to check with NV Energy and their Business Energy Services Group. Southwest Gas has rebates and promotions, especially on the water heating side of things, furnaces, cooking equipment, things like that for properties that have restaurants. And then Southern Nevada Water Authority, Patrick's going to be talking more in a couple of presenters, but rebate programs for water efficiency technologies, and also looking at xeriscaping and replacing outdoor landscaping. So next slide. Beyond our local utilities here in Nevada, there's also federal resources that you can tap into. One of the really good ones is Energy Star Portfolio Manager through US EPA. You can use this tool and build in your utility bills so that it can track your electric and gas, it can track your water, it can track your waste, so that you can use that, as I said, you want to start from a standpoint of knowledge and data. So Portfolio Manager can really help you manage the information and the data for your facility. And you can also use it to establish your baseline and then enter ongoing utility data into Energy Star Portfolio Manager. And as you do that on an annual basis or even a monthly basis, you can track, your improvements that you're making, reduced energy consumption, reduced water consumption, things like that, and be able to report that to the people, to your customers, to other partners. So it's a really good resource for being able to just manage the data. There's also something called Energy Star for lodging. So just ideas specific to lodging, particularly for the smaller size businesses, that resource. Next slide, Anthony, please. And then US Department of Energy, they also have what's called the Better Buildings Initiative and the Better Buildings Challenge. So the initiative you can go to and utilize that as a resource just for new ideas, new resources, things that you could do at your facility. And then if you wanted to take it kind of a next level, you could enter something like the Better Buildings Challenge, and over a 10-year period, look to reduce your energy consumption by at least 20%. You make that commitment as part of the challenge. But again, that's something that, by participating in something like that, you can market it and let people know what you're doing. So next slide. Other additional resources beyond the federal government resources and some of the state resources are, there's the US Green Building Council, and they look at buildings. And I'm sure that you've all heard of LEED and LEED certification, the leadership in energy and environmental design. And that's where, it applies to both new construction on buildings as well as renovations. And, for the efforts that you make to achieve LEED certification of the buildings, you can get recognition with either something like the bronze, the silver, the gold, the platinum ratings, and can market that again to your customers. Purchasing, they're a great resource for greener products and sort of banding together for purchasing power would be the Sustainable Purchasing Leadership Council. And then we worked earlier in the pandemic with the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection to put together just some tips for maintaining sustainability during COVID. So there's a link to a tip sheet that was put together by the Business Environmental Program and the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection. But yeah, I think the key message in all of that was really that, sure, things are going to be different going forward, and there's different steps and requirements that we all need to follow as we reopen and continue to reopen more broadly during the pandemic. But as we do that, we don't have to put sustainability on the shelf. We can still be environmentally sustainable as we respond to the new requirements and the new guidelines related to COVID-19. Next slide. So, just to close, if you need a fresh look, if you need a fresh set of eyes to come in, need some help with anything related to environmental issues, we can help with environmental regulatory compliance and permitting. We can look at waste reduction and pollution prevention opportunities, taking a look at energy efficiency, and just getting started with sustainability plans and strategies. We're hearing a lot about the cleaning and disinfection. Daniel talked about the US EPA List N for the disinfectants, and Daniel also talked about the electrostatic sprayers. As we were working with businesses as they were reopening, we were finding that, not every electrostatic sprayer is equal. So, you've got to pick a product that you want to use that's on the EPA List N, but then you've also got to pick a compatible electrostatic sprayer, because they aren't all compatible with the different cleaning products or the disinfectant products that you might want to use. And then, everything's not all created equal within the List N either. You have everything is on there because it can disinfect. But, when you're talking about environmental sustainability, when you're talking about worker health and safety, some of those products, particularly ones that are, say, based on hydrogen peroxide technology, they're going to be more environmentally friendly, more worker health and safety friendly than something that's a bleach or an ammonia quat. So, it's taking a look at helping businesses sort of sort through a lot of these questions. That's what we're here for and able to do. So, if you need any help, feel free to give us a call. Next slide. And there's our contact information. We've got a toll-free hotline, our website, and then my email address is there. So, like I said, I just wanted to highlight some of the resources that are available to you and just kind of give the general reminder that as we go through all of this with COVID-19, and, Pranav gave a great example, as things become different, we don't want to forget about environmental sustainability. And the good thing is, it's easy to keep it going, and there are ways to keep it going. So that's the message that I want to leave you with today. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So many great resources. And if you have missed one on the slides, we will actually send this out to all of our NHLA members. Also, please make sure to type in your questions. I know some of you have put in some questions on our Q&A feature, and we'll get those answered towards the end. Our next speaker is Byron Sampson. And let me go ahead and pull up his presentation. So Byron,
Yes.
Byron's going to talk about the best practices for commercial laundries for guests and team safety. Byron is with Brady Linen Services. He is our Vice President of Sales. Hi, Byron.
Hi, how are you doing?
Wonderful. If you don't mind sharing a little bit about yourself, and then I will pull up the visual that you have provided for us.
Sure. I've been involved with sales and service with the casinos for over 20 years, but recently joined Brady Linen Services in 2006, heading up their sales and service department, and been with them since. We've grown to, from a small plant. Now we're part of the parent company, Pure Star. that consists of a lot of different laundries across the country. And very proud to be part of that group. And some of the best practices that we implement here in Las Vegas as it relates to the protocols having to do with the pandemic is all across the platform as well.
All right. My first question to you, Byron, is what are the first steps for evaluating sustainability in a commercial laundry operation?
Yeah, so there's two areas. One, naturally, of course, is the water. We use pulse flow tunnel washers, and all of those tunnel washers have a water reuse system in it. And basically, it allows us to use 75 to 80% less water. In addition to that, the wastewater energy is recaptured to preheat any incoming fresh water as well. The next category will be energy. Using energy, naturally the tunnel washers are energy efficient, maintaining LED lights inside and outside of our plants. When we're not operating any of our equipment, basically we shut it down. The heat exchange system to heat up the water, we reduce that just to keep the boilers going. And then we also have low temp cold water chemistry that's activated. It doesn't have to be activated in high temp, it can be activated in low temps. So therefore we can reduce the energy. So both in energy and water is how we maintain the sustainability. Right. And then in addition to that, our processing chemicals come in bulk tanks that helps mitigate any packaging containers that we would keep on the property.
Wonderful, great steps. Could you describe some easy to implement best practices for on-site laundry operations?
Yeah, best practices. Well, first and foremost, I would say, we really have gone above and beyond to really make sure that our employees are kept safe. When we had shut down for a while, when the pandemic first started, all of the executive team and other team members came in, and we've done a lot of different things within the plant. If you can see on the last, I think it's the last page with the pictures right there, and how we could kind of separate it, spread of folders, where you have multiple people that are standing next to each other. We'll put plastic partitions in between so they feel safe. They're all required to wear masks. We as leaderships, we wear masks all the time, even in our offices, just to show that leadership on the safety, the constant hand washing. And basically with our supervisors, they monitor and just make sure that everybody's following protocol, not only on the plant, but even in the lunchroom area. Typically, we have the tables, and, we restrict, where everybody's sitting together, we restrict them to sit, maybe 4 at a table to keep that proper distance, also keep the mask on. We sanitize not only the interior of our trucks, but also the hampers in which the products are delivered into our customers.
All right, well, thank you, Byron. So if anyone has questions for Byron, of course, please put it on the Q&A feature. We're running a little bit behind on time, so I'm going to move on to our last speaker. The last speaker for today is Patrick Waltson. Hi, Patrick, can you hear me?
Yeah, good morning, how are you?
Wonderful, so you're going to talk about impact on water safety during a pandemic. And Patrick is the Convention Services Administrator for the Southern Nevada Water Authority. So my first question to you, Patrick, are there any precautions that residents should take when it comes to maintaining safe water conditions?
Sure. Let me start by saying we have one of the safest drinking water systems in the country. We also have, just to give you an idea, we test water about 20,000 times a year. So we go out and pull samples. We have a state-of-the-art water quality lab out at the lake. So let me start by saying that. And then let me start with the businesses. As businesses reopen, operators and facility managers, they'll need to take steps to ensure the safety of the on-site water system. For commercial businesses, especially those that have either temporarily closed or reduced their on-site operations, or have large complex plumbing systems, it's important to flush those water lines that have sat dormant for any period of time. As water ages or it sits in the pipes, it can influence the water quality in the plumbing system. It can create lead and copper and Legionella issues. So aging water can allow lead from solder or copper from the pipes to leach into the water. So flushing this out, the low quality water out, brings in fresh water. So the Las Vegas Valley Water District, if you go to lvvw.com, they have some details on the actions that building and facility managers can take when they're reopening their buildings or sections of their buildings. So in a nutshell, you should flush the building plumbing system after the water has aged in the system. Flushing the water, and it should be discharged to the sanitary sewer, so a drain, anywhere to a drain, and not to the street or the ground or a gutter. And it's really simple, just opening faucets or other fixtures, and and it just provides potable water, drinking water, come in to the kitchens, bathrooms, drinking fountains, and it turns that water over in the system. You should also think about, as a building, think about flushing your cooling towers. You know, the basins in the cooling towers, the ice machines, dishwashers, or any on-site water filtration systems that you may have. Just service them to the manufacturer's recommendations. Now, for residential, it's pretty much the same thing. You just follow the same rules. You flush your system. So, for example, if you go on an extended vacation, flushing the water out of your pipes after it's sat for a while, and again, any water filtration system that you might have in your home, just bring them up to the manufacturer's recommendations, and that should help.
Great. So because of the pandemic and its impact on the water in Las Vegas, what is the most significant impact on the water?
Well, there was an impact on the water. So when Nevada initiated its stay-at-home order, we saw a pretty quick drop in demand, about 15%. That decline, however, didn't hold for long. We saw water demand increase through the late spring and summer of 2020, and that's compared to an average over the past 3 years. So late spring and summer of 2020, demand was about 2 to 2.5% higher than the average. And this was at a time when the Las Vegas Strip was essentially closed. And we kind of anecdotally speculate that with more residents at home, there was a greater opportunity for homeowners to give their landscaping more attention, or drain their pool and clean their pool and do different things in outdoor spaces. But by June and July, water use had begun to approach typical levels for the summer. And we think this was spurred by high temperatures and the absence of monsoons. If you remember, last summer, it was extremely hot, and we didn't get those monsoon storms that we normally get. And so demand exceeded the average for the 2 months before falling back to the trend back in August. And just to give you some context, for our daily demands in August, we use about 440 million gallons per day in August. So it kind of fell back in there. More importantly, though, when we shifted to our fall watering restrictions in September, we saw daily water demand drop by 50 million gallons a day. And that was a 15% decrease in the seasonal use, which was good. And the community responded by changing their clocks. And we saw that immediately. But then we saw the community increase that usage because the weather remained hot and dry in September and October. It just seemed like summer was not going to end. You know, it's Halloween and kids are running around in short sleeve shirts, and it was just miserably hot for a long period of time. So our 2020 water accounting isn't complete yet, but overall, I think we're going to see a 10% higher water use than it was in 2019. And again, I'm going to repeat that 2019 was very wet. It was cold. We had a really nice winter because I like it to rain, obviously. But 2020 was much drier and hotter. So that 10%, we kind of accounted for that early on. This year we haven't seen much snowpack in the Rockies. And let me step back for a minute. We monitor the snowpack in the Rockies in our Colorado River basin because 90% of our water comes from the Colorado River. Last August was the first time and I can't remember how many years, that we had zero inflow into Lake Powell from the Colorado River. And that just meant there was still water flowing into Powell from the Colorado River, the upper basin, but it was so low that it just didn't register. And so that was the first time in many, many years that happened, and that was last August. So having said that, we're hopeful we get some more spring storms this year. But the result of the low snowpack will probably result in a drop in Lake Mead of 15 feet. And that's going to trigger a federally declared shortage for 2022. Right now we're in a shortage, and we're taking 8,000 less acre feet of water this year. So if the federally declared shortage, will take an even greater shortage. So, and that means we'll get about, we'll be cut about 7 billion gallons from our supply. However, having said that, we've prepared that through the years. We're to take those shortage conditions on, and we've done that through our conservation programs. And Chris mentioned, we have our Water Smart Landscaping program and the water efficient technology programs. And this is where the community has really stepped up and done some great things in terms of conservation. So while we will be taking a shortage, we won't feel it. I mean, it'll be there, but we won't feel it. Now, that's not to say there isn't work to do. We still need to conserve water. We still need to take out non-functional turf. To just give you an example, for my sector, I oversee the conservation programs for the multifamily, commercial, and institutional sector. They have about 1,400 acres of non-functional turf to take out. And commercial businesses have only taken out 20% of what they have. And when I say non-functional, I mean that's grass that the only person that's on it is somebody that's mowing it. And that's it. It's just there for looks. And we've seen now artificial turf is the quality of these turfs are unbelievable. And when you're driving by them in a street median or an entry to your property, nobody knows the difference. So those are things we need to do to happen. And our incentives reflect that. So we give $3 per square foot for every square foot of grass that's removed for the first 10,000, and $1.50 up to $500,000. Chris mentioned the water efficient technology program, and Parnov Brady Industry have, the Venetian and Brady Industry have been really good participants in that. The Venetian has a very unique water filtration system where they're collecting nuisance water out of their parking garage and then cleaning it and using it in their cooling towers, which is amazing. And Brady Industry, you mentioned the pulse tunnel washers. We've helped purchase some of those. We've given them incentives to purchase those. They're also putting in water treatment systems where they recycle water. So we're very happy about that. And the WET program, one of the things we're kind of emphasizing this year is cooling. Cooling here in Southern Nevada, you can imagine, is a huge part of our consumptive use. And with these big resorts, their cooling towers are quite large. So, we'll incentivize controllers that help conserve water, drift elimination, putting in new drift packing, water treatment, and any new technologies. We're very interested in new technologies, and we'll help support putting in something like that for a business, and to help them with the return on investment. So please give us a call if you're interested, or you have anything that even a new technology. If there's something that you'd like to explore, please give me a call. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. So the question for you, when it comes to us as residents of Southern Nevada, is there one thing that you would recommend for us that we can help conserve or make sure that our water is safe, like what we can do on our day-to-day basis?
Sure. I mentioned our water smart landscaping, and if a lot of people just want to have a lawn, and if you have a lawn, I would use a smart controller, something that turns the water off when it's raining or it's too windy, and waters according to what the plant needs, instead of just set it and forget it type of operation. But and then if you find yourself with a front lawn or a lawn that you're not using, let us help you pay to take it out. Any consumptive use, outdoor water, is really good, and that's what we want to get. And they can encourage their HOA. They can encourage their HOA to take out any non-functional turf, for sure.
Well, thank you, Patrick. And I just want to re-clarify, you are the Conservation Service Administrator, not the Convention Services. So
yeah, no, well, it's a hotel lodging. It's logical.
All right. Well, this is our end of our panel speaks. So we're going to go ahead and reserve some time for Q&A. I know we have a few questions for Q&A, and I believe our first one comes from Diane Essner. I believe this question is for you, Pranav. What is the best way to introduce new innovators of circular, sustainable products to the Nevada hotel community?
Yeah, I think when it comes to circular economy, like I was saying, it's all about just finding products that you're using in your own operations and trying to find innovative solutions, so that you're able to not just throw them into landfill, but reduce or recycle or repurpose through your stakeholder partners, right? And I can give several examples, because at the Venetian Resort, we're extremely proud of our waste management programs, because we have really robust and comprehensive programs, and a lot of ideas that we have implemented over the years were ideas that actually came from our own team members, because they're the ones actually working on the ground at the grassroots level, so they know, what type of products are generating in terms of waste, and what are we actually doing with those, right? hotel operations is a great example, because we get like amazing support from housekeeping, PAD, hotel operations, all the way from like line level team members to like, the department leaders. So for example, a couple of months ago, or maybe like 2 years ago, I believe, we actually conducted a team member engagement program, which was called Green Ideas Challenge, where we encouraged all our team members to submit ideas that would allow the Venetian Resort to, reduce, basically be more sustainable, right? I mean, we asked them to give ideas that would help the company reduce energy usage or water usage, or reduce waste, improve recycling, and also ways we could implement to like more effectively engage our team members. So one of the ideas that actually came from a housekeeping team member was to donate all the um, gently used items from the guest suites to local community partners. Like again, like I said, we already like used to repurpose so many different types of products that were ending up as waste, uh, but actually repurposing to like other usable products through our community partners. We have like tons of examples like those. I'm happy to share like offline as well. But going back to the example that I was giving earlier, so one of the housekeeping team members um, encouraged the company to basically donate all the gently used items. So we used to get like tons of items, like, I'm referring to things like hangers, ice buckets, like trash bins, notepad holders, you name it. We have like so many different items that we place in our guest suites, right? Just like any other hospitality company. So what we did was we started collecting all those gently used items, and we found a local nonprofit partner through which we're able to actually repurpose all those types of products. Because the reason why we have to do that is that we cannot place items that do not meet like Forbes standards. That was the reason why we have to like discard those. But previously, a few years ago, we used to simply like throw them into trash. But now we're able to like repurpose those through a local community partner. Similarly, we have a lot of other examples like those. We send all our used linen and towels to Opportunity Village, and they turn those into like cleaning rags. We again buy those from them, and our housekeeping team members used to clean like guest rooms, bathrooms, and things like those. But by doing that, we're also able to create employment for physically challenged people. So that was a great initiative, because we're not only able to reduce our environmental impact, but also we're helping the community and helping with some amazing social causes. And similarly, like with all the used electronics, we get like tons of electronics. Again, like I said, we are a massive property. Our operations are huge. So every small initiative that we do has a huge impact. When it comes to environment and also community. So one thing that we did with used electronics was to partner with Blind Center of Nevada, which is again a local nonprofit community partner. So we're able to send all our used electronics to them, and by doing that, we're not only able to reduce our like costs, because previously we used to spend a lot of money in like properly recycling all the electronics, but now we're also able to like support like visually impaired people, because they're actually taking all our used electronics, and they're really like amazing talented people, because they actually disassemble our used electronics and they build new electronics out of those, and then they sell those on like eBay and to other developing nations, and they're able to generate some revenues, thereby also supporting their mission, and also creating employment for a lot of visually impaired people. So those are just few examples, but again, like I said, we have like so many examples like those, and I'm happy to like share some of those best practices and ideas offline.
Well, thank you, Pranav. And while the questions are coming in, I just want to ask everyone on the panel individually, what has been the single most challenging aspect to deal with during the pandemic, and how are you handling it? Who would like to start on that? Oh, Patrick. Yes, go ahead, Patrick.
You know, I think we sent everybody home, basically. And so setting up our workspaces at home, working remotely, but we also, we have to continue to make water and deliver water. So we had to figure out the best way and the most safe way to do that for our staff. So, you know, they mentioned, I know that safety protocols were mentioned and brought into place. We had to do that as well. So we had to develop all these remote activities. But since then, I think what we've all kind of embraced working remotely and the technology that's been made available to us. And so now we're trying to innovate and be innovative in using these remote capabilities. So, for example, we found the need to hire new staff, but we also need to interview them and bring them on and then train them. So now we have a remote training guide where we've embedded video and different things. So you know, at the beginning it was a little rough, and now I think everybody's kind of embraced it and are looking for ways to innovate.
All right, well, thank you, Patrick. Anybody else in the panel that care to comment?
Anthony, I'll jump in. The biggest challenge we've seen, especially recently, is battling fatigue with all of the guidelines and everything. You know, we did the same thing, of course, as everyone else, and sent everyone home for the 3 months that we were shut down. And when most of our team members came back to work, they happily, you know, abided by all the guidelines, wearing masks, staying separate at lunch, things like that, because they were all happy to be back to work. But now that we've been doing it for, you know, 7, 8 months, you know, you start to see the mask not being worn. All of a sudden, 5 or 6 employees around the table in the EDRs instead of 1 or 2, and having to continually remind everyone of the protocols and things in place because they haven't gone away. That's been actually a much bigger challenge than getting everything back open in the spring.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, this is Byron. I would say within the factories, one of the challenges is that as the team members still contract the virus or have to do the safety protocols, is really continuing to run our factories and meeting the expectations of our customers as seamless as possible, even with, you know, as a staff, you know, as people are, you know, coming in and out, you know, because again, you know, contracting the virus or being around somebody that had it, and then they have to stay off of work. So that's probably the biggest challenge right there. Working with a small staff and still meeting the customer's expectations.
Thank you, Byron. And I know Michelle has a question.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest challenge for me personally was that we really had to go through the process of re-educating our clients mainly, not just our team members. We started providing sanitization through electrostatic equipment, and we looked for the best solution when it comes to the chemicals that go with it to make sure it's the greenest possible and so on. And having to educate our clients as to why this is not something that you just, you know, you fog an area and the virus goes away for 3 months, or how long does the fogging last for? Well, it'll only last for as long as someone who has COVID sneezes on the surface, and that's that. So I think that the educational piece was the most one of the most challenging parts for us, especially because there was so many people out there that just wanted to perhaps take advantage of the situation and make an extra dollar or extra profit in the process. So definitely education.
Great. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, hi, Anthony. I was going to chime in as well, just to share my thoughts. So I think for us, COVID-19 definitely placed a burden on our Science, Growth, Research to Sustainability program due to, business, budget, and other operational type of constraints. In fact, few of our programs and initiatives were, definitely impacted, due to COVID-19 and also ability to execute well. And I honestly believe, will likely continue to be impacted beyond 2020, because the business also has to alter its direction and strategy, due to an array of business impacts. While some business shifts are already clear, other trends and resulting changes in business direction are still not clear. So there's definitely a need and opportunity to understand these trends better, to better prepare sustainability for both short-term and long-term planning. But in general, I think our biggest challenge was how we can keep moving the sustainability agenda forward. Because COVID-19 definitely presented a new challenge to stay current, relevant, and on top of latest trends, policies, and unintended situations. And I think one of the best examples would be single-use plastic, which, as we all know, has gained a significant amount of attention and traction globally just before pandemic. And COVID-19 basically presented a reversion back, to single-use items and a move away from reusable options. And on top of that, challenges and changes to the recycling market, continue to disrupt recycling rates, and makes it even more challenging. So we did everything we could, with strong support from a lot of our internal stakeholders. We were able to eliminate, reduce, recycle, single-use disposables where possible, even during the pandemic. And again, I think the PP recycling initiative is a great example of that. So.
Thank you, Pranav.
Anthony, I would just join in that from the indoor air quality side, we saw big disruptions in the supply chain for filters, for UV lamps. I'm sure that trickles down to PPE, sanitizing equipment. So just like Pranav was saying, a short-term plan is good, but what's our long-term plan? Because there may be another pandemic, there may be more viruses. What's a long-term plan as far as making sure that we're prepared for this as an industry next time it comes around, as prepared as we can be, I should say.
And then last but not least, I believe Chris.
Yeah, and I would say, and I'm sure that folks like Daniel and Pranav have dealt with this more than us, but we had a lot of questions coming in about, there are all kinds of different products and new products being sold and marketed, and places getting lots of calls. We work with the school districts in Nevada. They were having all sorts of vendors and people promoting new products that would supposedly disinfect long term, and just kind of sorting through the different product claims and helping businesses through that. That was something that was an important thing for us.
All right, thank you, Chris. Well, once again, I want to thank our amazing Clean and Green Committee from the Nevada Hotel Lodging Association. Thank you to Jim Kenny, Michelle Klein, Pranav Jampani, Byron Sampson, Chris Lynch, Daniel Harn, and Patrick Watson. To all of our audience that are watching with us today, a full video recap will be made available in a few days on our NHLA YouTube channel. So subscribe to us to Nevada Hotels. We're also on Facebook Live. So if you're on our Facebook, type in Nevada Hotel Lodging Association. You can see the video recap right now. Any of our upcoming virtual events, check with us. Click on the event tab at nvhotels.com. Once again, thank you to our panel. All the presentations that are presented us today will be sent out to our audience members. And have a wonderful day. See y'all soon.
Thank you, Anthony.